CJ, I know you guys covered this already, but we have not covered this development from the Marianne Williamson campaign. A former staffer, Jeremy Elwood, published a bombshell Facebook post this week, which he has since taken down. So let's read these. He posted to his Facebook page, Marianne Williamson, her campaign is not a campaign. It is a book tour. Here's how I know. I was the national field director. I was fired along with anyone who mentioned ballot access or field plan. Her focus is only on events and social media. I was half joking a month ago that this is a book tour. I found out on the day that I was fired that she has a book coming out in September. When I brought up in a staff call that we still don't have ballot access in any state, she literally called ballot access, quote, mythical stuff. Sounds like her.
Sounds like her. I swear to God, I was just going to say that.
Fits. If the shoe fits. Myself, national field director, and my partner, field strategist, were let go after we toiled to make a solid national field plan and had to pivot to political director roles to fill gaps so we could finish the field plan. We weren't allowed to complete our roles because of, quote, mythical stuff. Marianne has fired those who know how to make a campaign win and has kept and promoted those who are only event and social media aware. Book tour. Again, she has no ballot access and doesn't care. Called ballot access mythical stuff. She fired everyone who has any semblance of field. She promoted New Hampshire state director to campaign manager. His name is Carlos. He knows nothing in big capital letters about national campaigns. By the way, I've only worked on nationals for the past 8 years, nor has he any experience in field, which is what it takes to reach the voters. Here he says it. Marianne is a grifter. Do not support her. She is here to sell her book coming out in September, and that is all she is here for. If she wanted to win, she would listen to the multitude of experts that were on her campaign before she fired them for ... giving advice and direction. I worked for her, and am all the more sad for it because I was duped. I thought I was more aware than that. Go ahead, Marianne. Shoot me a cease and desist because I will do neither. Well, apparently he has done that. Your campaign has no hold because you're a grifting fraud. This Facebook post has since been deleted, so apparently he was probably a little more bark than bite when he said, I will do neither cease nor desist. But he did add to the original post these two comments. This is from Jen Dyes' Substack. She actually tweeted this out. P.S. Still waiting for the $400 expense payout and the $6,000 severance payout. Note, this is not me as a disgruntled employee. I was fired on June 30th. I would have made this a lot sooner if it were just me being disgruntled. This is me being sickened by seeing that she's taking advantage of supporters while I know it has nothing to do with the campaign. She's using the money to sell a book. End of story. Okay, so we did confirm on this guy's Facebook page that he was a former employee at Marianne 2024. That's also, yes, that's also listed on his LinkedIn. So this does seem legit. We wouldn't just run with this if we didn't check it out at all. So not only does his bio check out on these various social media platforms, but also the story jives with our assumption about the Marianne campaign and the way that these previous two campaign managers were let go, as well as Jason Call, who was, I guess, co-wrote the platform. He was higher up. He was let go. Then you had Peter Dow come out and kind of break the NDA, then say he's breaking the NDA without actually breaking the NDA. We heard from a source, we won't get into who said it, but we broke this a few shows back, I know you guys did too, who said, yeah, we're bound by NDAs, that's why we can't talk. Right. Right. And
and also all of these descriptions of her are consistent with stories going back 30 years. You go back, you read how she was written about in the LA Times back in 92. It sounds exactly like what he's describing. You have 30 years of people who have been around Marianne describing her being extremely volatile to the point of it reflecting mental instability, which some people chalk and it's sexism. Really? You've got the whole board of directors of her AIDS charity pick up and start another AIDS charity because they're all just sexist, right? It doesn't make any sense. Maybe one person, two people for 30 years, every organization she's ever been involved in, that she's ever run, there is just this history of people departing with bad feelings, people claiming to be bound by NDAs, not able to talking about it anonymously, and the same descriptions of the same kind of behavior from her AIDS charity 30 years ago to her presidential campaigns today. They're all sexists, many of them being women. Come on.
Yeah, I don't buy it. But when I saw this, and the last part you read, I did not. That's the first time I'm hearing it. I didn't see the extra comments. But what if he, like, he knows he's under an NDA, so he puts this out long enough for a bunch of people to screenshot it and know it's going to be out there. Then he just takes it down. That could have actually been his strategy. I don't know if taking it down does anything to make sure he's fulfilling the NDA. I don't know if doing that does anything. But I mean, unless she can say, like, unless this was a plant from a long time ago, oh, it's a Democratic plant. You know how the People's Party says it's a Democratic plant who has been sitting there this whole time working to try to get you on ballot, and now he's coming out with bogus stories, or this, like to what you're saying, Russell, this isn't in line with what a history that this person has. Even if we're taking away what happened in 1992, just think about the last 6 months. The last 6 months, how many different stories Politico has ran, other outlets have ran about her and her staff. Just how many stories, and then you add this on, and then when Jason called, if we remember when Jason called and Peter Dow left, how they didn't address why they left in the beginning. Like, you can just easily say, like, Peter Dow, if it was about his family, hey, I have a family situation, I got to step away from this. I'm just telling you. I'll let you know later. It felt like he needed time to come up with a reason, or to hear what people's like reaction to the news, and then he will formulate sort of a response in that case, because they didn't give the answer in the beginning. And this is what I say about Jason Call. Jason Call wrote in his tweet, or what his thing saying that he was leaving. He maybe didn't mean to do it, but he said, yeah, I wrote all of that. And then he had to kind of retract. I don't remember if he retracted, or, maybe that was a reason he took something down, but he's the one who wrote all of that policy stuff. Now, I don't know if he wrote it I don't know if he wrote it like, this is my idea and I'm doing it, or if he just copied and pasted. But if I had to bet, that's mostly from Jason Call's head, and nothing to do with Marianne Williamson. And this is why when people would say, just go to her website, she believes this, and this. And I'm like, she didn't write any of that. So it's the same thing with Joe Biden. He didn't write any of that stuff pre-campaign. So it's no use in going and reading that as that's her freaking ideology, because it's not.
Well, I don't know what the deal is in terms of why this guy took the post down. Maybe he was threatened with legal action. That would be a safe assumption.
Probably. Also, look, if man, I don't want to show it, although he does have it posted to public. This guy lives in Flint, apparently. And he had a very recent post where he was showing how, I guess a lot of them are still living with water filters. And he was showing how his water filter was already brown, I guess, like already had to be replaced. And normally it would take much longer, meaning the water's more poison than usual right now. And he put up a post like, what the fuck is going on? My filter is like, so maybe he was, pissed off. And he vented, especially, you're in that situation and these people owe you $6,400. So he went and he came out, and then they threatened him, and he got scared. They were like, yo, man, at least you got a house.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because, look, we're not in the situation where we're being threatened with a lawsuit. That's obviously very scary. These people have a lot more money than a lot of these guys have. Certainly more money than any of us would have to fight off a lawsuit from Marianne Williamson. At the same time, isn't it tempting to root for one of these guys to just call their bluff? Because what is she going to do? She's going to sue this guy for speaking out. She's going to sue this working guy for speaking out. What would that do to her image? How many books would she sell if that were the case? Right? You know what I mean? Like, it just exposes what a poser she is. And I do want to take this super chat here. We're going to go out of order because it relates to this segment.
I mean, with some of the people who come at you on Twitter when you criticize Marianne. You know, I mean, she's a cult leader. You got these people who, it doesn't matter what evidence there is, they're going to support Marianne no matter what. Is that enough to have a best-selling book? I don't know.
So DC says all Democrats have ballot access. In the general, that's true once they get the nomination. Yeah, it's
right.
not the
not
same
in the
battle.
primary. You have to collect signatures.
You have to collect signatures to get on the primary ballot. So if I announce I'm seeking the Democratic nomination, they don't print my name, Keaton Weiss, on the ballot. You have to get a certain amount of signatures from registered Democrats. In New York, it's something like 5,000 to 10,000. Say it's not a terrible amount, but it's still quite a bit. I mean, you need an operation to do that. Right. She doesn't have one. Maybe she has close to one in New Hampshire, since that's what she's gunning for. But yeah, it takes a lot. That's why Bernie had the big rallies. Those big rallies were not just for TV. When you have a rally and 20,000 people, you get the signatures. You get people signed up. You get on the ballot that way. You register volunteers so that they can go get signatures. It's a big process. You don't just get ballot access because you say you're running, right? And so what this guy's saying is that she doesn't have those signatures anywhere enough to be on the ballot,
and that she's not trying to get them.
She's not even trying to. And it sounds right. It sounds like right to me because she's losing staff and she's not replacing it.
Right.
I think the last number I heard
to
was
get
12
those signatures. That's why Bernie had the ground.
12 staff members.
Yeah, I heard she's down to total? 12 staff members. I read, total, which is a ridiculous. Unless all you're doing is online events, all you're doing is events and preparing people, just getting your name out there, so when your book drops, people know. Oh, I'm curious to do that now. But just think, how much of what kind of person would go through all of this planning months ahead, reach out to her people in independent media and say, hey, make sure you're putting me out there, doing all of this, hire field staff, hire all these people just to write a book, knowing that she has no intentions of like actually trying to do this job. This is why I feel like she, like, for as far as foreign policy and a lot and some other policy things that she seems not too like well versed on, that to me kind of speaks to that, because she never was really trying to do this. She just kind of surface level sort of learning these topics so that she can speak semi-intelligently in a conversation and not to the point of depth, because none of the topics that she talks about, she actually goes into depth about. She just talks about them very surface like. And then when she's questioned, that's a good idea. Well, this is one of the answers she always gives. She's like, I can see it both ways. She uses that a lot. I see it both ways because she never can really talk too deeply about a particular substantive issue.
Well, she did that to you guys. I remember when Nick and Sabby would make points, she'd say, well, there were a lot of good points in that you just said.
She did that all the time.
Right. Yeah, indeed.
And I must say now with that interview, the way that interview ended, I feel so vindicated now for expressing that anger in that video because of what has happened with this segment right here where we're talking about her former field director. I feel it's like a weight lifted off of you that, you take all this incoming fire about this assessment about this person, and then when that assessment ends up being true. Now, let's say...
Well, yeah, because you came in. You didn't waste no time.
Yeah,
you just came
I
in.
didn't waste
as soon
any
as
time.
she hung up, you
because you know why? It was like... It was anger that I knew you were bullshitting us.
Right. That's exactly what you said. That was the first thing you said.
Like
she's
you're
bullshitting us.
people, and that it just that was the feeling I had. And I still have that feeling, this story just proves that point, that she's been bullshitting us this entire time. Now, I must say, I don't know if Kyle and Crystal in particular, and specifically Bree, knew about this level of her grifting. Maybe they knew she's probably going to win, and she's probably going to have a good chance of winning. But I don't know if they knew, like, this is all about writing a book. I don't know if they knew that extent. Now, I'm not putting it past Colin and Crystal, but I don't know if Bree. I'm just not getting the feeling that Bree knew that much about her grift to that extent. I
don't think they're in it like that. But what I've said all along about the fact that all of these PMC commentators, even the ones who are good on a lot of issues, like Bree, like Katie, all of them clearly showed a bias towards Marianne. And I think that's because of their class identification. They feel comfortable with her. I think they're impressed by the whole Hollywood, best-selling guru thing. It fits their status. It fits their class. RFK, that's too crazy for them, man. That's too out there. That's too radical. That's too dangerous. It's too edgy. Marianne, they find relatable. They see her as one of them, even if they don't want to admit that or think of it that way. Why'd you pick? You got these two people running, and look, man, you don't agree with RFK about the schmack scenes? Okay, fine. Do you agree with Marianne about Ukraine and Israel? I know Katie doesn't. So why was that a deal breaker with RFK, who's polling a lot better? If what you want is to platform issues, he's doing a lot better than Marianne is. So why did all of them, not one of them gravitated towards being biased towards RFK? Every single one of them, Marianne resonated with them. I'm sorry, that says something about you.
To me, that makes it like we are post-duopoly. We're not supporting. But I'm saying if you're progressive and you're saying I'm picking somebody, how are you not picking RFK specifically for that reason?
Well, that's the thing, yeah.
The professional managerial class is trying to make your, like, the threshold of being a great leftist is Medicare for all, and it's not. That is absurd. Like, Medicare for all, single-payer healthcare is not a left issue, in my opinion, because there's conservatives all over the world that think that everybody should have healthcare. There's conservatives in Europe who, this is not the left issue. This is a thing that most leftists agree with. But if you're saying that and especially when they're talking about messaging, don't you think it's important that there's a left messaging? Why isn't it important that there's messaging against Ukraine to you, as a professional managerial class member?
No, that you're right. I mean, that is the litmus test right now, especially since that's the issue that the president has direct authority over, right? Is Russia, Ukraine, right? It makes a real difference. Biden versus RFK on Ukraine. Biden versus RFK on Medicare for all. First of all, RFK isn't really for Medicare for all, but let's just say Biden versus Marianne on Medicare for all. Marianne Williamson becomes president. How's she going to pass that through? She's not functionally much different from Biden on that either. I mean, she expresses a desire to pass it, but functionally she's not different because you're not going to get that through the Congress now. Functionally, she's not that different from Biden on Ukraine, and that's an issue where she could be particularly different if she wanted to be, but she's not, right? So yeah, I mean,
but this functionality is the point that I make, is that RFK. Now, what I've heard RFK that I believe in Medicare for theory, but that's not going to happen through any of these parties, which seems a lot more honest. But to the point of your functionality, what's the difference in? Let's just say RFK says no, I'm against Medicare for all. What is the functional difference? What's the tangible difference against somebody else who says, I'm all for Medicare for all? And then you say, how are you going to get it? I'm going to rub these two sticks together. Like, what is the difference? To me, that's how I look at it. Like, what is the difference in that? Because if she's saying I'm all for Medicare for all, but I'm doing it through the Democratic Party, whose leader says I'm going to veto it, like, what does that tangibly do? That's why I think messaging can be the threshold that these professional managerial class are trying to sell us on. We just need a candidate for messaging. Not if your messaging is not attacking a capital, is not attacking the military industrial complex. We don't need messaging on Medicare for all. We don't need messaging on $15 minimum wage. We need messaging on nuclear war, messaging on the proxy war. That's what we need. Messaging on now.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, messaging on Medicare for all, that's how Bhaskar Sunkara sells magazines, right? I mean, that's what that means.
Right.
Right? And you're right. I mean, it's a very superficial difference to advocate for Medicare for all versus to be Joe Biden and say, I'd veto it. Either way, the bill's never getting to your desk. So whether you'd sign it or veto it matters a lot less than whether you would stop arms sales to Ukraine tomorrow or keep it going until nuclear war breaks out. Absolutely. Right. Now, in terms of like, did Kyle and Crystal know she was this bad? Probably not. They figured, hey, we'll convince her to run and we'll, juice our channels off of the campaign. Although I think that book that she's putting out in September, they're making a romantic comedy movie out of it called My Best Friend's Third Wedding. That's going to be that's the name of the book. It's going to be a rom-com. Julia Roberts is going to come back. So that is a little suspicious. That does make me a little bit suspicious of that.
Please clap.